Nowadays, more and more Russian companies rely on foreign construction contractors to carry out their large-scale projects. The advantages of our foreign colleagues are strict adherence to construction deadlines, outstanding quality due to cutting-edge technologies, enhanced workplace management, and numerous workforce. Such companies are ready to provide to the client with a bank guarantee against advance payments, so that the client could fully secure themselves against possible financial losses. And as odd as it might sound, the employment of foreign general contractor is economically viable. For example, Russia and China signed an agreement on the construction of a railway bridge across the Amur River from the Jewish Autonomous Region near the town of Nizhny Lenivsky to the city of Tongjiang, Heilongjiang province in 2013. The length of the bridge is 2,209 meters, of which 309 are to be built by Russia. The cost of the Russian part of the project was 9 billion rubles, of which 4 billion rubles were allocated for the bridge. China has already built its 1,900 meters back in 2018, investing 2.642 billion yuan. This is 21.63 billion Russian rubles at the 2015 exchange rate. So we have the Chinese side of the bridge, which costs 11.4 million Russian rubles per 1 meter, and the Russian side, which costs 12.9 million. By the way, the Russian side has not been completed yet. However, practically all foreign construction companies in Russia faced an issue of as-built documentation delivery to the client, and even a high number of as-built documents engineers were not able to solve all the difficulties. We will discuss the reason of these difficulties later. So what as-built documentation is exactly? In layman's term, it is a set of drawing and text documents which gives a visual and textual representation of what and how was built on the construction site, and how much it all corresponds to the detailed drawings issued for construction. Anyhow, why do we need as-built documentation? Firstly, as-built documentation states the material used in the construction. In other words, in as-built documentation, you can see the quality of the materials used on the construction site and understand to what extent they meet the specification in the drawings. Secondly, using as-built documentation, you can check to what extent the performed work corresponds to the drawing and meet the requirement of GOST and SNIPS, Russian technical standards and codes, and the drawings attached to the acts, you can see height or axis deviation. Thirdly, as-built documentation contains all permitting documentation, certificates, licenses, permits, orders, identification documents, and so on. That is, the qualification of the construction contractor and its personnel is confirmed. Fourthly, as-built documentation will come in handy 5-10 years later. It is essential for the facility operation service during maintenance, as all the serviceable assets are underground or under a layer of concrete or grout, and you need to find some laid cable or a pipeline. Fifthly, and this is the most important part, no as-built documentation means no payment from the client for the performed work. And as a rule, construction contracts in the territory of Russia stipulate that in order to receive the payment, the client has to receive an appropriate set of as-built documentation, together with the acts of the work's performance, KS2 and KS3 forms. In plain terms, the as-built documentation confirms the quantity and quality of the work performed. KS2 and KS3 forms directly shows the scope and cost of these works. Let's talk about the issues that arise during preparation of as-built documentation. Firstly, it is a heavy workload and an unclear amount of paperwork. Construction projects involving foreign contractors, especially in the oil and gas sector, are distinguished by their scale. You are not going to surprise anyone with a facility with several hundred production units or 600 to 800,000 inches of pipeline diameters. The number of detailed drawings often exceeds 1,000. When several thousand workers work together with engineering and technical personnel at the construction site, it is difficult to estimate the amount of as-built documentation required for the client to accept all construction and installation works. Secondly, it is an untimely start of work on as-built documentation. It just so happens that the construction managements forget about this as-built documentation department during mobilization of resources for the particular type of work. However, a leader engineering for as-built documentation is a key position in preparation of drawings, qualification documents, preparation of daily reports from the construction site, and creation databases for storing all the necessary information. Carrying out construction activities is 90% of success. The remaining 10% is preparation preparation and submission of as-built documentation to the client. Thirdly, it is poor record keeping. It is very difficult to set up a centralized material accounting system when several people are in charge of ordering materials, delivery, processing requisitions, and checking receipts, as work in all disciplines are carried out in parallel. Each person maintains a list at their own discretion, neglecting colleagues who are also in need of this information. In addition, deliveries are usually divided between the client and the general contractor, which also affect the material accounting. All these circumstances snowball into an issue of poor accounting of documents on quality and incoming control of materials. Fourthly, it is the absence of up-to-date and full information on the work performed from the construction site and company departments. Several separate departments are simultaneously involved in the construction activities. Their cooperation is paramount for the overall success of the project. Procurement receives material, construction erects the facility, quality control and labs oversee the quality. The chief welders departments is responsible for welding and certification. Surveyors draw diagrams. The as-built documentation departments prepares as-built documentation, and the estimating departments is responsible for receiving payments from the client. And each of these departments has several dozen engineers. All of them do their job well, but would hardly know what information their colleagues from other departments require. Since the as-built documentation is linked to absolutely all construction departments, this situation creates an information shortage, enhancing the difficulty of its preparation. Fifth, it is the human and technical errors in the preparation of as-built documentation. The as-built documentation is prepared by an engineer who works on a computer and uses a printer. Hence, we have a man-machine system. Human error is inevitable, although it is generally accepted that the amount of human errors does not exceed 10 to 15%. We want to eliminate it. And let's add another 5 to 10% here on account of typesetting, cut off letters, incorrect word wrapping, lost borders. This way we get to 25%. Sixth, it is the lack of specific client standards and outdated regulatory documentation. I think that none of our colleagues ever met a client with detailed instruction on the preparation of as-built documentation. Let's forget about appendices to the contract, as they only reflect general ideas and requirements for the set. In reality, each reviewer issues the comments based purely on personal experience and preferences. I'm sure that most present here came across a situation when the client's representatives send you the comments and cannot name any specific underlying regulation or national standards. Let's also mention that the project owners are usually foreign companies, and the current regulation and technical documentation in Russia is outdated and not adapted to international standards.
Hello, I would like to find out if there is a way to reduce the impact of these issues on the preparation of as-built documentation.
Yes, there is. Some companies suggest their softwares to help for preparation of as-built documentation, but these softwares just partially covers the needs of the company, and the main it's very expensive. That's why we have created our own software for the pipelines.
But why pipelines?
Very simple. The piping has the most amount of the as-built documentation. In the previous project we had 272,000 of the piping as-built documentation. On our current project we have 176,000 of documentation. That's why we have chosen the piping. Now we are going to introduce this software and show some capabilities of it.
Okay.
Any discipline begins with design data. That is the information we get from the drawings, material specifications, and technical specifications. There is a general data section to store all the necessary information. Here you can see a list of drawings, companies participating in construction, a list of people involved in construction, name of construction areas, standards for materials and steel grades. All reference guides are compiled taking into account all the details that we may need in our work. Let's take a look at a couple of them to have a better understanding of what is stored there and why. For example, a list of isometric drawings or ISO list can show you the piping class, the drawing current revision, the diameter of the main pipeline, and remarks if the drawing is on hold. There is a reference guide for all companies participating in construction in order to assure conformity of all details throughout all documents. That is, in all 42 documents, the name, address, phone, taxpayer identification number, principal state registration number, SRO will be the same and will have no mistakes. There is a history of company name changes. For example, if a company has been renamed, our software would put the old company name in the documents which had been created before the name change, and a new name for documents issued after that date. A list of responsible persons who signed the documents follow the same logic. You only need to check once to be sure that all the documents contain the same full names, position, numbers of orders, certificates of all responsible engineers. I would especially like to single out welders. It has absolutely all qualified welders at this facility. NOx certificates with numbers and period of validity, authorization sheet numbers, welding types, group of materials and sizes of welded parts are all here. Such reference guides help to eliminate errors and strongly facilitate the preparation of as-built documentation, but we will return to it later. The second step in the performance of construction and installation works is accounting of the materials used in construction, their tagging, selection of quality documents, monitoring of the results of incoming, control of materials arriving at the facility. Record keeping section will help you with this task. Here you can find information on design specifications and electrodes, records of receipt of materials, their compliance with quality documents, and the results on acts of incoming control are also kept there. To account for incoming materials, use packing list subsection. In other words, these are waybills for goods. Here you can see the date of receipt, packing list or waybill number, material description and its quantity. Here you can import data from Excel waybill and vice versa. You can export the complete list of received materials in any convenient format. Use export data and import buttons. It is imperative to check the availability of accompanying documentation for these materials after receiving the materials. Quality document subsection will help you with this task. All certificates and quality certificates for materials received at the company warehouse are given here. You can also find information on quality documents number, its name, originator, material description, as well as its quantity, standard, dimension, and lots of other information here. Then there is information of incoming control, inspection result certificates for unit subsection, certificate numbers, inspection dates, information on materials, quantity, and certificate status, whether it's been signed or to be signed. There is construction section for keeping information on construction progress. That's where you keep and update information on welding work, support fabrication and installation, pipeline painting works, as well as information on system testing, flushing and purging. Now let us tell you about some of the functions. You can add information on new joints that were added during the installation activities in the subsection on pipeline welding. Go to the section on adding joints, select the necessary drawing and add a new welded joint. Enter its number allocation, select the welded material code. Please note that the software will give only material codes available for that particular drawing. As you remember, we have the relevant information in the record keeping section. Our software fills in the dimension and standards for this product itself using the given material code. It is also possible to update welding progress. We select the drawing we need and begin to fill in information on the date, temperature, and the welders who have done the job. The software will offer only those welders or operating process charts that are applicable to this category of pipeline based on steel grades and dimensions of the part to be welded when filling out welder stamp and welding operating process chart. That is, it is impossible to enter incorrect data. The software offers fusing only for those materials that have passed the incoming control when filling in the data on the part to be welded. All this data can be updated one by one or as a batch from an Excel file. The subsection on updating information on non-destructive testing works in a similar fashion. Now let us show what documents our software is able to generate. Go to record keeping section, press the button carry out incoming control. Here we see a list of materials that arrived at our warehouse. There are quality documents, but there is no incoming control certificate. Moreover, the program takes into account the amount of materials in packing lists, in technical passports, and the amount in previously issued certificate, and displays the net balance. It is very convenient for high volume deliveries. Select the materials we need, make up an incoming control certificate, certificate for this material. The certificate number is assigned automatically. Choose the certificate status to be signed, and we can see that the software has picked up the certificate we need itself. Save the changes, press the button, and the certificate is ready. All that remains is to print it or save it in convenient format. It immediately appeared in the subsection with all the other incoming control certificate. In construction section, go to welding, select any pipeline or several lines. For this, we have buffer filter button, and select any documents from the list of as-built documentation and make it up. I chose the welding log as it one of the most difficult documents. Absolutely all information is here: drawing numbers and welded joints, welders' names and stamps, information on units to be welded, their quality certificate, consumable data, and the result of non-destructive testing. By following the same steps, you can make up concealed works act and painting logs or pipeline installation. In laboratory subsection, you can form reports on visual inspection control, as well as make up an application in the prescribed form for radiographic examination. You can choose 1,000 joints at once if you want and make up all VIC reports. I will not go on about all the documents that the software can make up, as this is a long list. I can only say that it can make up the pipeline technical passport in just one click. In addition to printing documents, there are many forms of reports, inspections, and additional functions to facilitate the work of as-built documents engineers. For example, to check the pipeline readiness, just leave drawing progress and see the detailed information for each line: the number of welded joints, the number of inspected joints, the number of valves, how many of those were installed, what is the status of quality documents, and incoming control certificates. You can also display notes for each pipeline here if you want. Also, it is possible to check the performance of each employee, the number of documents he made up, the time spent, and which forms were filled out. We are able to generate any reports that the company's management need. You can check the correctness of the entries from the construction site. You can check the dimensions of the parts or the correct use of materials. You can use check button to check a specific characteristics. There are a lot of options, and you can customize it for any request. It is known that in addition to the documents themselves, one has to prepare many other annexes: laboratory reports, incoming control acts, certificates for materials, and inspection results. The software will create a folder and collect all the necessary annexes there in order to exclude manual search and selection. Report button will help you with this task. We see all the documents in one place. You just need to print and certified copies. We also have the feature of forming interim sets of as-built documentation for welding and pipeline installation. That is, we cannot submit the documentation until all the works of this line is completed, but our contract department wants to receive payment for the joints that have already been completed and non-destructive testing that has already been carried out. We can make up folders with interim documentation which confirms that the works on these joints has already been completed. Perhaps the most attentive members of the audience have already noticed that there are still administration and instrumentation section which we have not covered. We will not talk about them. We would like to protect our trade secrets. Some things should be hidden. Still, what are the advantages of using such software?
First of all, it's the storage capability. We can store the hundreds of the terabytes of information in our computer, and it's very easy. The second is the software can provide the different roles and rights for the users, and several users can work at the same time in the document, and it's very easy to follow up the history of the changes in the document. Third, software easily integrate with the Excel. For example, some construction engineer wants to save his reports on Excel, and it's easy for software just to read what kind of information he has in his Excel file and can save it. The fourthly, it provides for the company departments to possibility use the information of other departments and can help for each user or each member of the department to see what kind of information has been updated by other departments. And also software saves itself the reserved copy of all database and store it in the separate disk. Also, I want to tell that this software can create a lot of reports, can help to users, can tell them if they are going to put some wrong information or something like this. Also, the managers of the company can create any report about the construction readiness and can follow up the progress of the construction.
So, did I understand you correctly that this program solves the issues which were mentioned in the beginning?
Yes, partially this software can can solve these problems, but it's not a magic pill. To solve all problems, we have to follow some kind of special system.
What need to be done to implement this systematic approach?
It's to use this systematic approach, we have to use some kind of rules, some kind of procedures. Now I have prepared some kind of rules for each department, which is where we can find the description of each department, of each database for each member of the department. And also it can help us for internal communication inside the company and for the external communication outside of the company.
Okay, yes. Our company has already accumulated good experience of operation in Russia, so we hope that our managers will gladly agree to streamline to Господи.
Yes, I also hope to this.